Grief is such an overpowering emotion, especially after losing someone so close to you. It can take months, years, even decades to get back to normal, if that's even possible after experiencing a significant loss. This podcast was created to help you move through and release the emotions, allowing you to heal the hurt and begin living again. Listen in as I chat with medical professionals, grief workers, and people who have first-hand experience in losing a loved one, what their experience has been, and what they did to help heal themselves and those around them. Life isn't always sunshine and rainbows, but I believe there is always a silver lining if you're willing to look. Welcome to the Release Podcast. Hi, welcome to another episode of Release Grief Podcast. Today I'm here with Emma O'Brien, and she is going to share quite a few things with us today. We're going to talk about psychedelics. We're going to talk about losses of animals, losses of family members. We are going to get in deep with a lot of things. So welcome, Emma. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so let's start off. It caught my attention in the whatever the form that I had you fill out at the beginning, that you had mentioned a word I didn't even know. You explained it in the form, but I want you to talk to me about it first, because I feel like that's a great lead in for like everything, because people shy away from this so much because I think they don't know about it. I don't either. So enlighten me.
Which word was that we were talking about?
It started with an M, I think.
Oh, mescaline.
Yeah, that's it. I'm like, yes, I don't even know these words. Like, I am so lost with them.
Which word? So mescaline is San Pedro. It's a plant medicine. So it's a type of psychedelic that comes from a cactus.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So it's a bit like peyote, which is the kind of traditional Native American psychedelic, but San Pedro is a more sustainable option for psychedelics.
Right. Okay.
Sort of similar variety.
And what were you using that for specifically? I know you mentioned a couple things like in the forum about the grief and different things like that. What specifically were you using that for, and why did you choose to use that?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. I've, for whatever reason, sort of towards the end of last year, I had a big curious pull to starting to look at whether I could do ayahuasca, and starting to be pulled towards plant medicine. And I kind of had a bit of a look and a bit of a Google, and I came across a shaman who did psilocybin ceremonies and San Pedro ceremonies, which is San Pedro is mescaline. So it's called the grandfather medicine.
Okay.
And I did a bit of research, and San Pedro is for a first-time psychedelic user, a nice gentle
introduction. Yes.
Because I believe, I haven't done ayahuasca, but I believe that can be quite an awakening. And it can be quite a vigorous experience. So I think the universe led me very nicely to a gentle intro to the world of mind-opening plant medicine.
Oh, I love that, because I have heard a lot about ayahuasca, and I've been intrigued myself. I have not sought anything out. I haven't done a ton of research on it, but I've read, like, when people on my feed talk about it, like I read it, I read all the comments, like I want to at some point experience that type of awakening and that type of like journey that I hear that you go on when you do those things.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It was quite a journey.
The baby steps. So I like that, because some of the comments are like, hold on. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah. I believe I've spoken to, so I think I did quite a bit of research and read quite a bit about it. So I sort of knew what I was expecting.
Right.
We'll talk more about it, but it was it was a life-changing experience for me. I know often you'll hear people say that with psychedelics that it changed their life, and you think, well, how on earth can that happen? Well, it did. Right. So very powerful. Very powerful.
Gosh. And so at what point did you seek this out? At what point in your grief journey?
So I wasn't really on the grief journey at all when I sought this out. I sought this out literally. It was something that popped in my mind for me, and I thought, ooh, sounds quite interesting. And I booked my plant medicine ceremony. I booked it a couple of months before it actually happened.
Okay.
And it's like the universe kind of lined things up for me. And when I went to go and do it, and it was just before Christmas, I went to go and do it. One of my dogs was very unwell, and I did the medicine ceremony, and she'd been unwell for a week or so, really unwell, and in and out of the vet. And my gut feeling on it had been that it was time to call it for her.
Right.
And, spoke to the vets, and they said, no, I don't think we're quite there yet. And, we don't need to make a rash decision. But my big dog, which her name was Jane, was 13. She did very well for a big dog to get to 13. But my gut told me it was time, but I was kind of listening to the vets. And it just happened that I went to do the San Pedro ceremony. And I went with a very open mind with it. I went in wanting to get clarity on what the right thing to do for Jane was.
Okay.
And then aside from that, I was like, do you know what? I'm along for the ride. So whatever the medicine feels the need to reveal to me, I'm open to that.
Right.
And it was really quite profound for me, because I ended up having this when you're doing San Pedro, it's a very inward journey. So I'm lying with my eyes closed, so there's music playing, and this is all happening internally for me, all of this stuff happening. And I had a conversation with Jane and her, whether it's my higher self and her higher self, whatever you want. And it was very sad for me, because I recall saying to her, I don't want you to go. I don't want you to go. And the message I got back from her was, I'm tired. You need to let me go. Please let me go. But I'm only going to go when you say I can.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that is intense, because animals become like family.
Yep.
You treat them and you care for them and you love them and they love you unconditionally, and it's just they become family. And so it's hard. It'd be like pulling the plug on grandma or a best friend or something like that. And it's like, I want to, but if you're tired, then I will do what's best for you.
Yeah. And I think what I got from that is this deep sense of peace, that it was the right thing to do. Because I think often with animals, especially if you have to make a decision to have them put to sleep, there's always that thought of, did I do the right thing? Did I try everything? Could I have done something else? Did I make the decision because it was easier for me because they're old and incontinent, or whatever it is? And it was very emotional for me, but I could just remember thinking, I know I'm making the right decision. And I would have gone to the vet after I'd finished the plant ceremony, to be quite honest, to do it. But I thought, you know what, I can't walk in there. I look wasted. I can't. So we ended up picking her up the following day. They said, don't worry, take her home. She's not eating, take her home. We got her home, and she was so unwell, I had to phone them and say, you need to come. We've made a mistake. And by we, I mean you guys, because it wasn't the right thing to do. We had to put her to sleep. So, but at least I'd made peace with that decision, that it was the right thing for her, and I think, because often with grief, I think it comes hand in hand with guilt.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
So for me, there was a bit of guilt, because I kind of I remember thinking at the time I should have listened to my gut, which told me I should have done it sooner for her.
Right.
And I think that's a difficult one to wrestle with a little bit for me.
Yes, I could very well imagine. We had a little dog. I didn't want this dog. My husband was at the time, he was in North Dakota. I have a very big attachment to animals, and my family knows that they can get that if they can get past my safeguards to bring that animal in the house, that animal will never leave again. They know this. And so I'm very staunch. No, I don't want the animal. No, I don't want the animal. Well, my husband was working out of North Dakota at the time, and this lady had these two Shih Tzus, and she was getting rid of them. She'd had them since birth, and they were like 8 years old, but now all of a sudden she was getting rid of them because she wanted to get cats now. And so my husband took the one, and he was like the camp dog. So he was out in Williston, North Dakota around, I want to say 2012, when they were the big oil boom. Okay, so they have all these RVs out there in camps. And he was called the camp dog because he would go around from trailer to trailer, and they would all feed him. And so
Clever dog.
Right. And he was a cute little dog, little black thing. And my husband had taken him, so therefore he became a family member to us. And so I made it a point, and I bond with every animal that we bring in. And so that dog became my dog. Because he would sit by me, he would lay by me, he was my dog. And I remember having to put him down because he was having seizures, and he was going, he was like 14 years old by the time we had taken him in. And for a little dog, like, that's a lot of years.
Yeah.
That's a lot of years. And it was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Like, it was heartbreaking. Like, we're crying the whole time, and it was, and I didn't get a ceremony. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. And I think that is the one kindness we can do for our animals that we can't do for each other.
Right.
Is to be able to say, you're in a lot of pain. You're having seizures. Life is difficult for you. Let's end the suffering for you. And I think that is something that we're very much missing for us as people.
I think so. I would agree with that. But the quality of life, like, if it's not there, then what is it? And why? Yes, that is a whole other episode. We will not go into that one right now. But talk to me about, so you said you had two animals that you, or that had passed away in like 6 months. And the family was in 6 months or whatever. So the last year has been a bit of an interesting one. So in May last year, my stepmom passed away after a pretty horrible battle with cancer. And that was it was very tough for everybody, but I'm in South Africa and my family are all in the UK. Okay. So I hadn't been, I managed to see her and have some time with her in February last year when she was quite unwell, but she was at home still. But prior to that, I hadn't seen them for 3 years because we had COVID, and slipped into something which is a big takeaway from me from the experience of losing Jules, my stepmom, is the last time I went back to the UK, I think was prior to that, was the beginning of 2019. And I had an opportunity to go again later that year, but I thought, I'm going to go next year. And we all know what happened the following year. And and I think, I managed to see her. We had a nice, we had a chat and everything else, but that was the last time I saw her. And it was a huge wake-up call for me of the fact that I had been taking time and my family totally for granted. There'll always be another time. And there isn't always another time. There is never always another time.
No.
It was, when we lost our daughter, she was 19 in a car wreck. Like,
I'm sorry.
That was a huge wake up call that you don't get tomorrow. You don't even, might not even get the next minute. So make every moment count.
Yep.
And it was, I completely changed how I did business at that time. And gosh, I'm tearing up now, but I completely changed how I did business at that time. So I stopped focusing on money and started focusing on connections.
Yeah.
And then you know, as the last couple of years, COVID hit. So connections were even harder to come by because we couldn't do anything in person. Like everything was restricted. So you had to do these Zoom meetings or calls or whatever. Like, anyway, another topic for another day on those. But it just goes to show how fragile life is, and the things that we take for granted. Like, we're not afforded old age. We're not, like, that's a privilege. It's not a right.
Yeah, it is.
And we think that we can just, I'm going to make it till I'm 100. Boom.
Yep.
Not everybody does.
Yep.
And it's so, oh no, go ahead.
Sorry, it's just so interesting. You said to me about you changed the way you did business, because I think for me, you know, we hadn't been very close because I'd not really been home, and we'd kind of spoken on birthdays and Christmas. You know, I had really let the whole thing lapse totally. And when she was poorly, I feel very privileged that I was able to have 4 days with her, and we just sat and we chatted, and we talked and we reminisced, and actually being able to sit and be present with her. And I remember thinking at the time, I'm making memories right now.
Yes.
And it's so important, and it has changed. For me, it's changed the way I do things as well, because I have made a concerted effort to make sure, I'm fortunate enough to have both my parents still alive, and I make sure I go back 2 or 3 times a year, and I go and spend 5 days with them. I make sure I speak to them very regularly, because I do not want to have any regrets of, shit, I should have been working less, should have prioritized, and I didn't. I don't want to sit with that.
No,
I don't.
That's a heavier burden I feel to bear than it is to just drain my banking account, because you have to spend money to go do these things. Let's be real. You have to spend money to go visit, to go see people, especially if you don't live locally. And it sounds like it's costs money for you to go visit them. But it's like, money can always be made.
Correct.
You can go get another job. You can go to Walmart, get another job, go to Target, wherever it is that's local for you, and get money and make money. But you can't make time.
Nope. You cannot buy back time.
No. So it's interesting, because I was going to ask you if you had a close relationship with your stepmother. And you kind of answered that with you didn't. But it was nice for you to go in. So how long had she been in your life?
Oh, she has been around my whole life, really, since I was a baby. So when I say we it's just we'd kind of not connected in terms of talking very often, because I had allowed life to get busy and work to happen, and there's another day gone by and I haven't called, and a day turns into a month, turns into 6 months, and it was a very big wake-up call for me to actually stop. And I've also changed the way I do business. So I've been coaching kind of on the side for about 4 years, and I'm a photographer. And for me, this was a real kind of kick up the butt to get the coaching business going, because I am aware at some point I have 2 parents in the UK. They might need me for an extended period of time. And I need to be able to have a business where I can pick up and go, and not end up either not being able to go because I need to work. And I've just started to really redesign my life around that. It's not being fatalistic. I told my dad, and he's like, you really can't be thinking like that. And I said, no, but it's planning for being able to be there to support you. Because I wasn't able really to be there to support him when Julia was very poorly, and I should have been, really. I should have been. And again, one has to be very careful of not sitting and playing it over and making yourself feel guilty. I can't change what has happened, but I can learn from it.
Right. Yeah, you can't change that aspect of it, but you can, moving forward, can change how you do
Yes.
business going forward with your family,
Exactly.
with your clients, everything.
Yep.
I love
Exactly.
that. That is, yes. Because I talk about all the time, and several of the podcasts I've mentioned about doing, I'm creating it's called almost like a funeral directive, how to plan your own funeral, because I feel that we plan for everything else in our life. We plan for birthdays, we plan for Christmas, we plan for Halloween, we plan for a family vacation, we plan for all this stuff, but we don't plan for our own end of life. At the time that we're going to pass. And at that point in time, we're leaving all of that stress, all of that pressure, all of that emotional baggage, and we're handing it right over to our family members who are in the crux and the mix of everything, and that are going to be playing, as you mentioned earlier, the guilt.
Yes.
Did I plan the funeral properly? Did I pick the right music? Will they like this outfit? Did they want to be cremated or buried? Like, these are just basic questions that happen at a funeral.
Yeah.
That's not even getting into all the financial issues. How is it paid for? Where do you want to be? Like, is this for your family? Or even like, if you're the one that's paying all the bills, did you leave the passcodes and information? Or are they going to have, hunt this stuff down for the next 6 months?
Yes.
I believe that there is a huge need for this, and people, the whole purpose of this podcast was to talk about grief and death and all of these things, because I am a firm believer that, like I said earlier, we're not afforded a long life, and we will not get out of this alive. Like, we just will not get out of this alive. That's a given. That is the only given in this world, is we will not make it out of this alive.
Yep.
Yeah, we don't talk about it.
No, we don't. No, it's interesting. So we have, my partner and I have both put together like living wills, because we've got dogs here. I've got a parrot, and it's important. I know I'm going, in the event of me being dead, I'm probably not going to know anything about it. But at the same time, there's the part of me that loves my animals, wants to make sure that I've put measures in place of this is what must happen in the event of something happening to the pair of us. And we've got, we've also had the conversation about, if there's a horrible accident and you end up on life support, do you want me to leave you there? Must I switch you off? Because it's
just basic questions that really helps. It's not necessarily for you, the one that's passing, it's for the people coming that are planning all of this stuff and taking care of, and they're making some major decisions about you that they're going to have guilt about and carry with them for years, decades, maybe the rest of their life.
Yeah. I think that is the hardest part about grieving, is the guilt. And the one thing that this was quite highlighted for me, and it was quite interesting observing what happened when we just lost our other dog, Dora, who we lost about a month or so ago. And she was also 12 and a half, also a big dog, and she just suddenly collapsed, and it turns out she had some sort of tumor on her spleen that ruptured. So it was within an hour of getting to the vet, I had to make a call on
exactly. Like, it's quick.
And I sat, it's quick. And I sat, I came home, and it was all a bit of a shock. And I'd been up, and I hadn't really slept, and I'd been up with her. And then we went to the vet at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I came back afterwards, and I could have played everything through. And the vet had said to me, we're going to do bloods. It's going to take about half an hour. You can stay if you want to, or you can go home. So we said, well, we've got the other dogs at home. Just call me, I'll come straight back. And we left, and we came back, and he called and said, look, you need to come. There's nothing we can do. And I sat with her, and I came home, and I thought, oh God, that half an hour I could have sat with Dora.
Right.
I shouldn't have come home. And at the time, it didn't cross my mind, because I hadn't slept properly. And we all know, if you don't sleep properly, your brain's not functioning properly. And
Right.
then I also thought, well, I could have been sat in reception for half an hour. But I started to feel guilty. And then kind of, this is where I think grief is difficult, because you start to punish yourself with, I should have done this, or I could have done that, and I missed out on that. And then you end up playing that through. And I had to just sit and go, Emma, you didn't know.
Right.
You quite probably would have sat in reception. So what was the point? And
Yeah.
it was all a big rush. And I actually had to make an active decision to not kind of allow the guilt train to leave the station and with me on board as a passenger. Because I think you can wind yourself up, like you've said, for years about feeling guilty about should have done this, should have done that. And we can't change it.
You can't. You have to make snap decisions and then live with whatever you decide.
Yep.
And it's right or wrong. I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer. I just think that there's just an answer.
There's just an answer.
And I think people get caught up with that, like, oh, well, if I would have done it this way, then this, and then they just torture themselves for the rest of their day. They just torture themselves until they decide not to. Yes. If they decide not to, you know. And it's, and I know when going back to when my daughter passed, like these decisions, like she was 19. No way had we had a conversation about death with her. No way. We never would have, like, just because she's our daughter, she's supposed to outlive us. And so our saving grace through all of that, because we were at the point where, like, we don't know if she wants to be cremated. We don't know if she wants to be buried. We don't know all of these things. And luckily she was just moving out. Like, she had started on her own. She was living with a girlfriend, a close friend of hers, and they had had this conversation. They had had this conversation when she was 19. And so she guided us, the friend guided us on what she wanted when she passed, because we had no idea. But why would you? Like you say, you know, you make, again, we go through life making granted. Our kids are going to bury us. Yeah, but we make a lot of assumptions, don't we? And I think, but you don't expect to lose a child at 19. No, not at all. It's just one of those freak things that happens. But I think that, and it's made me realize also, like, if you look back in your life, how many times have you been this close to not making it? A vehicle wreck, or a car swerving towards you, or you trip and you fall and you hit your head, or, you know, like, all of these things could absolutely take you right then. Like, we are literally, I think, walking on a pathway, like one way, you know, as Yellowstone calls it, the train station. We're all heading towards the train station at some point in time. That's it. And I think the takeaway for me with it is I know we can get caught up in everyday stuff and we can get caught up in stress, but I think sometimes it's a good reminder to go, actually, does what I'm worrying about now really matter? Can I let this go? Can I let this go? Because are you the only one holding on to it? Like, at the end of the day, is it just you that's stressing about this? And then you have to analyze, why are you stressing about this? Like, is it because you feel people are going to look down on you for whatever decision that you made, which is an outward thing. It's not inward, because, you know, everything's just so damn complicated. It's just us. We complicate it. It's our own. It's all the reactions to the thoughts that are happening in our minds. Absolutely. So talk to me about, like, after you lost your stepmother, like, did you go through the grieving process with that? Like, and talk to me about, like, the emotions, the feelings, in that respect. Yeah, I think it was difficult. It was difficult for me. So I went over for the funeral. So the funeral happened about 3 weeks after she died. And I went over for that. And I think, because I hadn't been in the thick of things, because I'd seen her, when I'd seen her in the February, she was still at home. And not long after that, she ended up going into hospice and hospital care. And
when I went, it was very real for me at the funeral. I think it's I can remember walking into the church and the hearse pulled up and the coffin came out, and it was a real, oh God,
Right.
this is seriously real. And I think it was there's a lot of regret for me mixed up with that. That we hadn't spoken very much, and I should have made more of an effort and all of that sort of thing. I try not to, like we've discussed, I try not to spend too much time there because I can't change it. But like we've said, I can do things differently going forwards.
Right.
And I think it was very hard to see my dad go through it, because here is a man who for most of my life I hadn't seen cry, who was very teary a lot of the time, and that was kind of hard and a bit confusing for me to see that, and knowing how best to support him, because I hadn't supported him emotionally before. So that was a bit of a challenge, and obviously then leaving to come home, it was difficult leaving him. Luckily, him and my mother get on very well still, so she's kind of been there to chat to him and support him. And then I went back over again in September, because like I said, I've made a very concerted effort to make sure I'm visiting often.
Right.
And I spoke to him on the phone, and I think it was for me, it was learning how to listen and be supportive, because I found it difficult to hear my father crying on the phone, because I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. I'm not the best person when people are very emotional, because I'm never quite sure what to
well, and then with grief anyway, it's like you're never going to say the right thing, and a lot of times it's hard to know what they need, what they want, unless they know themselves and know what they need, and most people don't.
No, and I think I think he just needed me to listen.
Right.
Because I think I started trying to comfort, and actually just need to be there and go, you feel sad, I understand that, and it's hard.
I'm here, I'll listen. You just let it all out. It's fine.
Yeah. So it's interesting, because it's kind of shifted my relationship with him in a way. So we're a lot closer.
Yeah.
Which is the one positive that's come out of it for me, if there can be if you can be a positive. And we're a year and a half later now, and he's moved through the worst of it, because he's had moments where he's been very, very up and down. So it was a challenge. It was very challenging trying to do it from afar, and then feeling guilty and thinking, maybe I should move back, maybe all of these kind of things of but at the same time I also can't be emotionally responsible for my dad, because that's not my job.
Well, it's not going to help him.
No,
it won't help him at all. And that's the thing, like your grief is your own responsibility. Like you have to go through the process, you have to do the things, and it's different for every person. It's different for each person. And I liken it to a pinball machine. Like you're going to hit one and then hit the other. Like the stages are going to be like ping ponging through your whole entire life for the rest of your life.
Yep.
Are you an only child?
I have a half brother, but he's 13 years younger than me. So we get on, but we're not terribly close either. So at least my dad he's kind of in and out of the house. So my dad has a bit of support from him as well. So he's not like he's totally adrift.
Oh, good. Okay. Was that Jules' son?
Yes, Jules' son. Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, that was Jules and your dad's son?
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Now I'm clicking. That makes sense.
You need the family tree. It's a short one, but
no, hey, you know what? It doesn't matter. I it just, family is family, and it's good that he has someone there with him. Because when my father passed in 2005, he it hit fast. He wasn't feeling good in December, and then
I had met my current husband, and we were going to drive down for Easter in 2005, and he was going to meet my parents and all of those things. Well, my dad was not feeling good, and you could see it. He'd dropped a bunch of weight, and my mom was trying to get him into the doctor. He just refused to go, stubborn, whatever. Well, he finally went about June or July, and he was told that he had pancreatic cancer. By August, the end of August, he was gone. And he was 54 years old. So, I mean, it happened so fast. And me and my dad were very close.
Yeah.
And at that point, she moved in with me. And she's been living with us ever since, me and my husband.
Okay.
My husband married, me and him married October of that year.
Okay.
And so she's just like, when everyone says Gordon and Faith, they're like, oh, Gordon, Faith, and Cindy. My mom.
Love it.
They all know it. She's and thankfully they have a great relationship.
Okay, that's good. not a difficult mother-in-law for him.
No. They get along fabulously. So which is great. But it was nice to be there for her when she needed it.
Yes. Yeah.
I couldn't imagine doing it from afar.
Yeah.
That would be extreme.
Yeah. So I think again, in comes that guilt of dad sitting, because my brother is he's over, in and out of the country and everything else, and that guilt of my dad sitting at home on his own, and I'm not there, and it was hard.
Yeah. And do you have children?
I have a daughter, who is 19 and a half.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So she's in the UK again now. So she's back getting ready to go to university. So last year was quite a lot going on. So we lost Jules in the May, and then we lost Jane the dog, and then 2 days later I popped my daughter on a plane to go back to the UK. So December was a little bit of a shit show here, emotional shit show.
Right. I could imagine. You were going through a lot last year, and it was like, and I like I say, grief compounds itself. Like it's not like it's like, okay, well, this one here is done. I've dealt with the death of my father. Boom, done. We're gonna put it in a box. We're gonna close the lid. We're gonna put it in, bury it. Whatever. It's done. No more.
Yeah.
We're not gonna ever have to pull that box out again. It's not how it goes, because then we have that one, and then you have this one, and then you have this one, and then say you lose a job, or you lose a client, or you have to move, or this happens, and then because those are all different forms of grief. You lose an animal, and it just compounds. And if you're not actively working with the grief, and going through all of the emotions of the grief, then that's when it like reaches up and bites you in the ass. Like it's like, I'm still here. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. And I think that's such a good point you've made with that, of going through the emotions of it. Is I think grief's not linear, like you've said, and it can kind of pop out of nowhere. And I think the thing you have to do is just allow it. You feel sad, so you feel sad.
Right. Acknowledge it.
Okay. Acknowledge it. That's the thing I found with difficult feelings, is often they're made worse when you try to go, shut up, I don't have time for you, stop it, go away. And they sit and they go, cool, we're just going to collect ourselves up. And then when you can't stop us anymore, we all, woo!
What was that?
You have to look at us all, because we've just overpowered you.
Yeah, and it'll usually be when you don't want it to, like at a great, like this amazing interview, or at this public appearance, or whatever, something's going to happen, and it's just like, boom, hey, we're here, we want to come to the party too.
And I think that's the thing. So I ended up going to but just before I went to see Dad again in September last year, one of my clients, my photography clients, lost her mum very suddenly, and that kind of brought everything up for me. And I went to the funeral there, and you forget, going to something like that, it brings up all of the previous feelings. And that was hard. And I knew what she was going through, and I just thought, you have so much empathy for people going through through that.
You feel exactly, it's like you feel the same way you felt when you went through it the first time.
Yes.
And you're feeling it for that person because
Yeah.
you know what they're going through now.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Extremely
Yeah.
hard.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. So when you did your San Pedro mescaline,
Yes.
that's what it is.
Yes.
Is it mescaline?
Yeah. Mescaline, yeah.
So when you went and you did that, did any
Mm-hmm.
of the feelings with your stepmother and stuff come up with that? Or was it literally just focused on your dog, Jane?
So it was focused on Jane, the dog, and it was interesting. I don't know how woo-woo you want to go here, but let's just
We'll
go there.
as far as you want.
So I both my grandmas appeared for me. And my one grandma, my dad's mother, she died when I was about 18 months old. So I have no conscious recollection of her whatsoever.
Okay.
Other grandma I do. The pair of them appeared. And interestingly, my dad's mum had said to me, "Don't worry, I'm going to take Jane." So yeah, I mean, it's kind of, it's almost, I think if you've not done psychedelics, it's like a dream is the best way to, when you have a dream and random things appear and none of it really makes sense. And I was kind of, I don't think Jules didn't really appear, but it was all of my kind of blood relatives that appeared. So it was very, it was interesting. And I just think for me, it gave me such a sense of peace. I'm not suggesting that everybody who's grieving should go and seek out psychedelics necessarily, but it just allowed me, I think it kind of almost not speeded the process, but it kind of aided the process for me in just coming to peace with it. I don't know what your beliefs are on life after death or what have you, but I think my feeling on it is we're all part of a universal energy, and you exit the physical body, but you're not quite gone necessarily. So for me, I don't feel like Jules is completely disappeared or Jane or Dora have completely gone. And I think that gives me some peace with it. Yeah. It's very interesting. I'll share with you. I haven't shared this with anybody. When I was sitting with Jules in February last year, and we were chatting, and we were talking about funerals, and we were talking about, because I think she knew she was dying.
Right. Yeah.
And I'd read a book, and I meant to look at the title before our podcast, and it is, I think it's called The Seven Energy Codes by somebody called Sue something. I'll find it. I'll pop it in an email for you, because maybe pop it in the show notes. Yep. And she talked about how she would get, I don't know if she'd had a conversation with her mother before she died about whether she could send her a sign when she'd got to the other side. And she said she would often see 4-leaf clovers, which she associated as being a sign from her mother. And it gave her great comfort. So Jules and I were chatting, and I said to her about this. I said, would you let me know if whenever you get to, and she said, "Isn't that a bit creepy?" I said, "Well, I don't want you haunting me with chains and jangling chains." but actually it would be of a great comfort to me if I had some sort of sign, because it just would be. And she said, "Oh, I think I'd come back as a tabby cat." So I said, "Oh, okay." And I kid you not, the night she died, bearing in mind I'm on a different continent, the dogs woke up barking at about 3:00 in the morning. And of course, we're in South Africa. So the immediate thing is there somebody in the house, or is there something going on here? And I looked out the window, and I just saw the back end of a cat wandering through the garden. And I don't know how or why it woke the dogs up, but it did. And I thought, oh, there she is.
There she is.
And it just was very comforting for me.
I love that. That is beautiful. I think that we get signs all the time. We just don't know what we're looking at. Or we just say, "Oh no, that was just a trick of that's a coincidence," or "That's a trick of my imagination," or "No, that's not really them." Psh, no way. No way. But I 100% agree with you that I believe that everything is connected. I believe that we are all spirits and in the body. This is our vehicle at this point in time. And that whenever we want to, we can communicate with our loved ones. We are able to have those conversations, to be able to, and yeah, it might seem like a one-sided conversation if you're not looking and paying attention. But if you are, then it's a two-sided, like things happen. They may not happen. Like they're not going to be someone physically appearing and talking to you unless you're just like bullheaded like me and just, don't see signs, and then people appear and,
Or you could go and take San Pedro and see if you connect with your loved ones.
I love that. Like it has been like my husband and I have talked about this so when Cassandra passed, like I was I call it the nothingness, because I wanted nothing to do. I wanted to do nothing. Like I just wanted to sit there and I just wanted to be by myself with my brain, just with nothing going on. No eating, no sleeping, no drinking, no nothing. And he's like, babe, you can't do this. Like you need to come do something. You have to do something. And I think that was one of the first times, because I'm a problem solver by nature. Like I'm always like, okay, well, how can we solve this? How can we fix this? What's a workaround? Like, how can we, that one doesn't work. Let's find a new avenue, whatever. And at that point in time, I was so focused on her death that I knew I couldn't fix that. And I was just, it's such a loss. I was just there. I was just like, I don't know how to fix this. Like I can't bring her back. I'm not, I can't do that. And so I just sat there, and he's like, listen to this. So he had me start listening to some NDEs, which are near-death experiences. And that's what brought me back. And that reconvicted me that she's not really gone, just her body is gone. Her spirit is still here. We still can communicate with her, and she still shows up. She loves to play jokes, and anytime something's happening or whatever, like, oh, hey, Cassandra, good to see you here again. All these things, and so that gives me great comfort.
Very much so. And I think, whether it's, people will write it off as whatever, and I think if it brings you comfort and peace, doesn't matter.
And if it's not hurting anyone, like I'm not hurting anyone.
Not hurting anyone. Absolutely.
Not out, I'm not drinking. Like I'm not going through those massive things like drinking and doing tons of drugs to numb the pain of it. I'm through the emotions and feeling them and going through it. And I'm just, there's so many ways that they communicate with us, and it fascinates me when people talk about this. And I think a lot of people that have come on my podcast are like, I hope, I don't know how woo-woo you want to get. I'm like, girl, bring it. Guy, let's go, bring it. I'm okay with it, because I find it fascinating when people think that way and see those things and can enlighten me, because I learned something from every guest I've had on here, every one of them. And I find it absolutely fascinating.
And I think this, so we'll, I could talk to you all day about it, but I think the signs for me, I think it's one has to watch that you're not constantly on the lookout for them. That's where it has to, you've got to be quite mindful of it, because I got some signs from Jane when she passed, but I don't know and then I was, thinking maybe Dora would send me a sign, and I don't think I've had one from her. And there was almost a bit of disappointment for me. And then you just think, you know what, you can't, this isn't something you can push. And obviously with the dog, I can't make an agreement of you're going to appear as an orange butterfly.
Right.
And there might be signs I might be missing them, but it has brought me, and it's made the grieving process easier, because it doesn't feel so like you say, their body's gone, but their energy is still here with us.
Absolutely. It's not so severed. It's not so like, boom, like you lost a limb or something, like it's just gone. And so, I'm all for it. I love the signs. And I'm definitely, I think, going to look more into the San Pedro, the baby version.
The baby version, but beware the baby version. The baby version is great, but the baby version goes on for quite some time.
What do you mean?
So something like psilocybin you'll have about a sort of 5-hour period where you're kind of in the other realm, and then it kind of drops off quite quickly. The San Pedro does not drop off quickly. Sort of 12 hours later, I'm thinking, do you know what? I actually would just like to switch this off now. It was fun for a while, but now I would like to be able
now
to
I'm done. I want to tap out. Where's the off button? So you're saying this is an experience for like a weekend.
Yeah, it's an experience for a weekend. And I think, look, it was fantastic. And I think for me, what was so life-changing about it was the clarity I got with Jane, the connection I felt with the grandmas. And then once kind of the first half of it was all quite serious and there was quite a lot of emotional stuff. And then the rest of the afternoon, I sat face down, well, was lying face down on the grass laughing with 2 other people. I've never had so much fun in my whole life. Everything was funny. It was brilliant. And I think sometimes, and this is something I'm going to talk about on my podcast. I think sometimes there's this preconception that, self-growth and self-healing has to be super serious all the time.
Yes.
It can be fun.
Just like grief. Grief doesn't have to be serious and dark and solemn all the time. Like, I'm a big proponent of knowing yourself.
Yes.
So if you know that, know how to bring yourself out of a spiral, knowing what the things that make you happy. So like maybe it's taking a bubble bath, maybe it's going for a long walk, maybe it's calling an old friend, whatever it is, know yourself.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest key that I can give anybody in grief is to know yourself. And of course, most people don't, but you have to figure it out. You have to learn and then mark these things down and oh, well, this worked great for this. Let me write that down on my, if you have to take notes, keep a journal, whatever, keep a little black book of ways to bring me out of a spiral and hand it to your significant other, your children, your mother, whoever. And it's just like, oh, okay. I can see that you're heading, because this is not just for you too, but like it helps other people help you.
Yes.
And that way you're not alone. And that's a big thing. It's like you feel alone. And a lot of it's by choice. Because like for me, it was by choice because I just didn't want to deal with anyone. I didn't have the capacity to deal with anyone because I couldn't deal with myself.
But I can understand that, losing a child is something that, like you said, it's something that we don't expect you're going to have to do. Losing a parent, we know it's the part of the human experience. If everything goes in a linear fashion as it's supposed to, we know we're going to say goodbye to our parents, and that is life. We know when we have pets, when they get old, we're going to have to say goodbye to them. And that is it, for you, it's, I don't even know how to begin, how you would, you're amazing for having gone through that and come out the other side of it. Cause that is something that you can't plan for.
No, you can't. But it made me so I like to look for what I call the silver linings of everything. And so with her passing, it taught me a lot of things. I have a lot of silver linings from her passing that I would not have had she still been here. Or maybe I would have, but it would have taken me a lot longer to know. And it's just knowing myself. A lot of it is just knowing myself and knowing that grief is something that does happen, and taking family for granted. That's one of the silver linings. Like I don't do that anymore. I take pictures of everything. My kids are so called, Mom, do we have to take another family photo? I'm like,
yes, we do.
I never know when this is going to be the last one. Or what, like all of us here. And so like, it just, I'm big proponent on that, big proponent on family. Like we're together. They know I love them. I make sure that they love them, or make sure that they know I love them. Like every time they walk out that door, if I'm not near them, like every time. huge thing. And people are like, mom, stop. I'm like, no, you stop. Shut your face.
You stop.
Get over here.
That's
Give
it.
me hugs. Get in the photo now.
But what a gift for you to have been able to pull that out of it, because I think it would be very easy, and it is, and I can understand how people get into a space of grief and don't ever get out of it again.
Yes, I can understand that as well. And I think it's what I would like in those two is that, one, you also have to look at the relationship of the two people. Did they have a good relationship, or was it constantly, this back and forth thing? Or maybe they hadn't spoken in years and now they are filled with regret because they hadn't been able to talk to them, or they just had this, I liken a lot of issues to communication problems.
Yes.
Communication is, I think it could be a world solver of everything.
And
it's like, you're saying one thing, you're hearing one thing, but what you're saying and what you're hearing might be two different things. Tone, implication, all those things. And all these families, squabbles, these family members that don't talk to each other for years. And then all of a sudden one of them passes away. Well, that they're going to hold a lot of guilt. They're going to hold a lot of regret about not, and potentially, I guess this isn't for everyone. There's always an exception to the rule, but of not being able to build that communication, because now they can't.
No, they can't. Yep.
It's gone. They can't repair that. They have to do the inner work on themselves before they can get to that point. And so this is where it's like, know yourself. Like, it pushed me further or faster to understand myself so that I can figure out how to solve my own problem. And that is to get out of my box of nothingness.
Yes.
This shit is real. Like, when you're in the thick of it, it's real. And I think the first 6 months are the most critical months. But beyond that point, if you're not looking to help yourself, no one can help you until you want to help yourself. Nothing will work until that moment comes and you decide that you're like, I need help. I'm going to look for something. I'm going to get back out there. I'm going to, volunteer in a group or go join this group, because why not? And so, but again, I could talk forever. Maybe that's why I started the podcast. It wasn't about getting the stories out there. Oh, well. As long as it helps one person, I am all for it.
Absolutely. And I think, like you said, it's a great thing to talk about in opening up the dialogue around death and passing and kind of, like we've talked about. I always feel a bit funny about talking about signs from the other side, that people might look at you like, are you okay? But
we've been conditioned our whole lives to not look at those, that's woo-woo. The church plays a big role in how everything is shaped right now.
Yes.
And I'm not here to bash the church. There's a place and a time for everything. But I think it's also shut a bunch of people down to not look for signs from the other side. Because we're all connected. We can all see them. It's just, are you choosing to?
Yes.
It's a choice.
Yeah.
I believe. Let me just put that disclaimer on it.
I believe in that choice as well.
Oh. Say I. Well, I have had an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for being on this podcast. And do you have anything else that you would like to say to leave the listeners with today?
Thank you very much for having me, Faith. I've loved this conversation. I think that the thing I would like to most share is this piece about letting go of guilt. And it is for me, it's being present, and when you are going through grieving, feeling the sadness that comes up, but trying not to be pulled by the guilt that ladles itself on top of that and mixes in with it is is try to let that go
Yeah.
as far as you can. Now that's easier said than done, but it makes the journey a lot harder.
Yes, if you hold on to it, it makes it much
If you hold
harder.
on to it. And I think for, you know, for the most part, the people we love and lose wouldn't want that for us.
I would agree with that. I would agree that they want us to just, you know, live our lives and be happy, as opposed to holding on to the past and the things that we couldn't or weren't able to do, or
Yep.
didn't have the capacity, or whatever it was. Yeah,
Yep.
I agree with that.
Yep. Thank
Well,
you
thank
very
you
much
so
for having me.
Absolutely. And we'll see you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much for listening to this special episode of Release. All the links plus a few extras are posted in the show notes below. And if you think someone you know could benefit by listening to this episode, please share it with them. And as always, keep going, keep being, keep doing. You are amazing.